Owning a Miata is cool. What's not cool is the size of the steering wheel. Being a relatively tall human being, I am unable to turn the Miata's wheel without my hands slamming against my legs. So naturally, this calls for a change. Aftermarket steering wheels are one of the most underrated modifications that you can do. It's not like they're uncommon, but the change in feel when driving is pretty significant. With a smaller sports steering wheel, the driving feel goes from being nice to feeling like you're sitting behind the wheel of a track car. The first thing that I did was disconnect the battery that's in the trunk, so that way the airbag doesn't blow up in my face and kill me, which would be really inconvenient for the rest of the project. From there, there's 4 10mm bolts on the back that disconnect the airbag, and then it's 21 and 22mm socket in the middle that you can take off with an impact wrench, and then just trying to yank the steering wheel out from there as best you can. Always remember to put the nut back on the wheel before you yank it out, unless you really just want to pull the steering wheel off into your face, but I wouldn't recommend that. So keep the nut on, then pull the wheel off. I do want to note that I didn't end up connecting any of the electronics for the airbag or the horn on the new wheel, so I will get the airbag warning light and the horn won't work for now. I just didn't want to do it for the moment because I wanted to get the steering wheel on and get this project finished, because if you guys don't know my style, I very much like to get things done in a rough setting, then go back and refine them later. So that's why you don't see me do it then. It may seem like a little bit more work for you, but it's the way that I'm able to process things best and get things done in the most efficient manner for myself specifically. So as we're watching this glorious shot that ended up getting blocked by half my shoulder, the wheel I got was a Nardi wheel, and I went with this one specifically because of the black and red pattern and because it was smaller. I really like the OEM style of the Miata, and I really don't want to stray too far from it in the modifications that we're doing. I'm going for OEM Plus, and I feel like this wheel is one where I get the upgrade that I want, but it doesn't distract too much from the car, so when you look at it, the first thing you notice is just the wheel that looks out of place. I do still feel like it fits the car well, even for what it is. One of the things about Miatas that I never knew was the fact that the headrests were designed to have speakers fit in them. So when I first bought the car, I ended up getting a pair of speakers to put in the driver's side headrest just to test it out and to see if it would work, and it is fantastic. The thing about the speakers that I got though is that they are circle speakers, and the ones originally intended for the Miata were more of a rectangle shape, so I needed to drill out the foam in there so that way the speakers were able to sit back and fit a bit better without bulging out the headrest too much. As I'm taking out the center console to get to the wiring for the speakers, I think you guys can perfectly see what I was talking about with the steering wheel being the look that I want, because at first glance you really don't notice that it's aftermarket, but then when you look at it you're like, hey, this is a pretty cool upgrade, but it's not one that completely stands out like a sore thumb, so it works out really perfectly. I'm a huge fan of it. I think I made a fantastic decision. I am so smart. When it comes to wiring the speakers, you could wire them 2 different ways. One way is in parallel and the other way is in series. Parallel is a bit more complicated to do because you need to run positive and negative to each individual speaker. And since there's 2 in each headrest and you only have 2 original wires, you need 4 wires in the headrest from the 2 original wires, so it is a bit more work. I went with wiring the speakers in series, which gives each of them less power, but since the head unit is aftermarket, I'm able to adjust the balance to just send more power from the head unit to the back, which then evens out the speakers, so I don't even notice a difference between that and wiring them in parallel. It would be something if I had incredibly high quality speakers where I was blasting music as loud as I could. I think that's where I'd start to notice the difference between not having them in parallel. But as for what I do is just daily driving and using it to just listen to music while I'm cruising, it's not something that's a significant change.